I have been listening to Cosmic Science. Cosmic Skeptic, a young guy from Britain, talking about morality and other philosophical considerations or whatever it's called, topics. And morality, uh, what defines us as human beings? Why are we human beings and not animals? Um, it must be one of the things is that we can cry, and that's when we feel some kind of sorrow or something that hurts or that doesn't feel good, or maybe feels good when you get moved and touched by something. You can cry. That is one thing that uh, is different from being an animal, because animals can't cry. And then if we're just animals or mammals who want to fuck all the time and see everything as a porn movie, then and we don't care about whether other people hurt or not, or feel they are hurt, then that morality is one of the things that defines us as human beings, that is different from animals. Even though we hear stories about animals, there was a program that my brother watched about, I think it was a lion who took care of an antelope or something like that, because she lost all her children, her lion kittens or whatever they're called, and she took care of this antelope, and she didn't eat it or she didn't bite it or hurt it in any way, because she must have felt some kind of sorrow. So maybe animals can't cry, but they can certainly feel. When you hear a story like that, that is what you must assume. But if we are just if we don't care about each other as individuals or as other human beings, then how can we call ourselves more than, I don't know how far back we'll have to go to find a description of what we are then, as what kind of human species. Okay, we changed physically, but that's not all Homo sapiens is it? I think being a human being has to do with feeling some kind of responsibility towards each other in a civilized society, not just killing each other in the streets and robbing each other's homes or peeing in the corners or whatever people can think of fun, or laughing at each other when people are crying. Just it's funny that you're crying. Why? What is that? Because maybe people lost their sensitivity, or they don't connect with, or they don't understand other people's emotions. What's that running out her eyes? Is it, oh, she must be happy. Or have people? Do people have difficulties understanding other people's emotions? I don't know, but what makes us human beings must be some kind of responsibility in a civilized society. We can't say having a society that is supposed to function with hospitals and social services, offices, and that, I don't know, they don't function the way they should. But we can't have a society with all these institutions if we don't act as human beings with some kind of responsibility towards each other. We don't think that if we go to the doctor, then the doctor will say, well, you have this or that disease, but it's not true, and he'll just give you medication and ruin your health. I mean, that would be crazy, and not being a human being, but being evil and sadistic and something like that. You don't think that if you go to the doctor and say, I have these stomach aches, and you're sent to the hospital and they make an x-ray and they say you have cancer, although we'll have to slice you up and take it all out. You don't think that there was no cancer, they just did it for fun to ruin your health. You will have to, there's a lot of trust in being part of the civilized society. And if people start becoming immoral, evil, instead of good, well, yeah, it is good, it feels good that other people act morally towards you. So that's what makes it good. It feels good for me, it feels good for you. That's why we act morally towards each other, because it makes us, maybe I don't feel good that you're helped, well I do, but not all people. And in the beginning of the development of or evolution or whatever, us turning into moral beings and the development of that and into a civilized society, maybe in the beginning it didn't feel good to help you, because I'd rather take a walk in the forest and find some food for myself, but I knew that in these groups it was easier, or you had to act more morally when you belong to a small group of people, like a tribe, than a big society where it's easy to hide your evil deeds, and other people will help you anyway, even though you did that to that person because they didn't see that, then they will help you here. But being in the small tribe, then okay, he broke his leg, but and he's screaming and he's crying, and I can see that he's in pain because he's screaming and crying. So what should I do? Should I go out in the forest and get some food for myself, or something for my children or whatever? Or should I, because they are not starving, they're not dying right now, or should I help him, doing something to help him ease the pain and find something to wrap around his leg? Or and maybe I didn't really want to help him, but I knew that if I didn't, then he might not help me. And maybe, maybe it was not put into words because the language came, it hasn't always been there. So it might just be some kind of what's it called when you have conscience, not being conscious, but conscience, when you feel obligated to help that person, but more like, if I don't do it, then I won't get help myself. I can easily imagine how people might not have been good people wanting to help, but knowing they would have to if they wanted to get help themselves. And now when we have built up a society from being these tribe people who somehow realized it would be best to help each other, or also we wouldn't survive as a race, and we wouldn't, our children would die, and the tribe would get small, and we could get something to eat, and then through time, then Christianity, and I don't know how far, Christianity, and then here we are, and now people talking about morality not even existing. It's been an ongoing discussion for years and years in philosophy, but it's not easy to say we are not a part of this society, and just pulling it all apart and saying that it doesn't exist, morality doesn't exist. I know how it's to be understood when you talk about philosophy, because you talk about how did it occur, morality, and what is good and bad. Well, that's what's described in the Bible. Okay, then it's written by these guys, and it's not something that you can separate from us human beings just making our own definitions, saying this is this and that is that. It didn't fall from the sky, and there's no bigger, there's no meaning to life because we made it up ourselves, and blah blah. And you can say it in better and finer words, but if we now start, if we're here and we start saying, well, I think it's pretty funny saying that she has this and that mental disease. I'll just give her these pills and I can watch her just sit there, because she's all from the medication, and it makes me go home and jerk it off as a male doctor or whatever, because wow, my sadistic needs are being fulfilled in that field, working with these people, or cutting that person up and just pulling out all these things. I'm not saying it, well, yes, I'm saying it happens. And I am saying that it is a big problem, because when you have experienced something like that, then all of your beliefs in us being a civilized race and people being civilized, and your trust in other people. When I met my ex, we took a boat, a cruise, to Norway. I didn't want to go, but someone convinced me that it would be a good idea, not him, but someone else. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And every time the boat stopped in a city, and we went off the boat, walked around. If he went to the bathroom, I would think maybe he's not coming back. Maybe he'll just leave me here, and maybe then I could think of a lot of things that could happen, because that was plausible. Something that crazy things have happened. So it's not even anxiety, just fear, because when you know things can happen, you have experienced that, then people can call it anxiety. But it's not when it's fear, when it's something that could actually happen. So trust, and because our society is based on trust, that if I go to the doctor, I'll have to trust that the doctor doesn't put poison in me, and that the people who produce the pills don't put poison in the pills to kill me gradually. So that you have to think. I think that you have to think that much about it to think about what is morality, and our society is based on us being moral beings, because you couldn't trust anyone if you didn't believe in morality. You couldn't go to the drugstore and buy painkillers, because you would know it might as well just be poison to kill you, or or any kind of drug. It could be some kind of heroin, and you would become a drug addict, and or going to a therapist. Then there was this guy called Dr. Disgusting. One of my friends went to him, and he made, at that time that was not a good thing. I don't know, today it seems like people are open to porn and things like that, but he made this vaginal massage because he thought that the sexuality and things like that would help people. He made my friend write diaries, and he made women crawl on the floor like cows. It's a bit like another therapist who does a lot of crap with men. I don't remember what his name is. Another Danish guy yelling and screaming at men, and I don't know what it's about. But he was on TV, the Dr. Disgusting, and I think he lost the right to practice his therapy, religion, or whatever. And she felt awful for many years, having all these strange dreams about yeah. So I know there are people like that. Also, there was this guy, a Danish guy, who was uh, what's it called? When you go, if you want a facelift or something like that, that kind of doctor, beauty surgeon. I don't know. I think I said the wrong word. Not the right. I have a brain damage from being hit by a car. I think. But he cut off a woman's ass so she couldn't sit, and she was on TV talking about the surgery and how painful it was for her afterwards. So it happens, but usually you don't expect those things to happen. That guy, he just went to another country to do his work there. But you expect that you can trust people, that people have some kind of morality, because our whole society is based on morality. The police are not supposed to say, well, you were the victim of violence, we'll tell you, we'll say you can't get near your ex because it's your fault, because you didn't want to put his dick in your mouth or something like that. You don't expect things like that to happen, but that's what happens in Denmark. You expect the police to protect you against the man who's been violent to you. You don't expect women in the social services to say your children are going, or some judge in the court system to say your children are going to that creep who threw you in the floor because you didn't want to put his dick in your mouth, and then they'll tell you if you talk like that, you're not supposed to talk like that. You know, how else can I put it when it's that disgusting? You don't expect that to happen, your children being forced to be with a violent alcoholic, but that's what happens, and that's why maybe the guy's right, actually. Maybe there is a moral decay, and maybe all the values of a civilized society are falling apart. Maybe doctors can't see why they should help people. Maybe they just put crap in people, even with some physical, and not mental, but mental is physical because it's the brain and it's in here, in the physical body, but whatever. What we usually understand as physical illnesses, maybe they'll just give you some drugs that don't work, and they'll just have fun, and maybe people are put to jail even though they never killed anyone, and maybe some people can kill people and still walk in the streets and kill more people, because it seems like, even though I would say that you can't talk about philosophy in an old-fashioned philosophical way, because we live in a civilized society, then it's not true anymore, because it's not a civilized society anymore. People don't expect, I'll hit myself in a few seconds, because I hate myself for having this brain damage that makes me, and I knowing that people might see this and jerk it off because they like brain damaged women because they caused it, or they just love that. And also children being with violent alcoholics and fucking, then Mr. and Mrs. are going to the bedroom to fuck because it's not their children, it's my children, and I look like a slut and a whore, and I look like someone they want to spit in their faces. Not, I don't have two faces, but that's the brain damage again, and they'll just go in and have fun. And I'm so sick and tired of living in a porn society where people, also Americans, telling me that it's beautiful that my children are with or that I suffer. My suffering is beautiful. I don't know what that means, but if you want it yourself, I'll be glad to give it to you, and I'll tell you how beautiful it is. And I think that, okay, this is, it's not easy, because I could study philosophy, which I have done, and I don't remember all the philosophers, but I had some courses at Roskilde University Center, and I could talk about it as if I was a young girl who was 19, who didn't have any life experience. and who didn't understand that we live in a civilized society and that we can't talk about it as if we lived in the time of Socrates or whoever. And I could talk about it as if I never experienced corruption and a lot of shit in the system. But it's not easy, and that's why it's not easy just to quote philosophers and use their words as like, is it possible that it's not whatever that guy was saying? Is it possible that you don't exist, or that, or is it possible that you could have never, or what? I don't remember how he asked the question, but I don't live in whatever when they lived, and we have this civilized society, and I have life experiences, and I think it's more. I know when you're young, you want to appear like you are clever and you have read this and that book, and you want to maintain some kind of image and persona or whatever. But when you get older, you think of it more in a political way. You want to change things. You can see our society is not going the right direction. But for young boys or girls, 19, 20, 16, so whatever, they will think, because they never experienced that. They lived in a comfortable, nice little home, and they could see that. So if it only happens there, and then 10,000 kilometers that way there, and or 500, and then it's not easy to say that it's. And I think it happens more often, but people are being shut up, or they don't even realize what's going on. They don't know that what they happened was not right. What happened, they don't know that because they never realize. I know because I work with children for so many years. I know I'm a good mother. My mother was a bad mother, but the social services were there, and they just asked me to shut up and let my mother speak, even though I was more in the daily life, more like a mother, and listening to her like I was a therapist. And but as long as I could shut up when she asked me not to talk, it was my mother's job to answer that question. And well, okay, I could shut up, and then no problem. And we lived a horrible childhood, my brothers and I. My mother was not a good mother. She should never have been a mother. And the boyfriends and all the crap she dragged in the door to pee in the corners and give booze to my little brother. And she was a bad mother, and I sometimes talk to a friend of mine about if my mother died, then I could live with her, and that was a dream, something I wished for. Of course, she didn't have to die, or if I just lived with that girl and whatever. But I'm a good mother, and I always said that I wanted to give something better to my children than what I and my brothers had. But now they live in something that reminds me very much about my childhood, and I wanted to protect them against that, and that's why I should have never gotten children. And I wish I had made a different decision, never meeting that psycho, and not understanding from whatever. I should have not gotten children, because I should have known that would happen, because I knew I couldn't trust anyone, and also that they ruined my lower region, and Hmm. So, what is it to be a human being? And well, what is good is probably what feels good, and morality, well, that would be nice, but you know, it's disappearing. And when I was young, I would have said, that's it can't be true. She's just. No, I wouldn't have said that. I would have listened. I would have thought, maybe she's right. What if she's right? Uh, like I did when my brother talked about the Bible to me. What if he's right? I did something awful. I'm going to hell. What if he's right? Then, and he don't want to tell me. He doesn't want to tell me what I did wrong. Maybe he's right, because the society has punished me ever since, and not giving me the same opportunities as other people. So I'm still wondering, of course. I don't know. And this is, well, as you can tell, I'm not trying to be clever or anything. I'm not. It's more in political, or maybe just preacher kind of way or whatever. Just trying to make people understand that being a moral person, and not saying that it's only when it comes to rich people or whatever, then that's necessary for us to live in a civilized society.